Good afternoon, everyone. Today is the 13th day of ER. It's a special day in its own right. The number 13 is the numerical value of love, and the love that we have for God, the love that we have for each other is quite prominent. But today I want to talk about tomorrow's date because tomorrow is the 14th of ER. The 14th of Iyar is a holiday, a biblical holiday that the Torah prescribes in the book of Numbers, in the portion of Bahaloscha. More specifically, it's in the book of Numbers, chapter 10, starting with verse 1. And let me give you the background to this holiday, which is called Pesach Sheni, the second Pesach. So first of all, there is no other holiday on the Jewish calendar that has a second holiday to it. Only Pesach has a second holiday. So why does Pesach have a second holiday? So the Torah tells us that in the first year after the Exodus, God told Moshe that they will make an exception and that the people should prepare for a Seder by preparing the Paschal lamb, having matzah and bitter herbs. Because the Paschal lamb and the Paschal Seder was not meant to be observed only once they arrived in the land of Israel. An exception was made the first anniversary as a sign of God's forgiveness of the Jewish community after they sinned with the golden calf. Now, there were people in the camp of Israel that were traveling with all of the Jews through the desert towards the promised land that were in a state of ritual uncleanliness. In other words, they had been in contact with a dead human body. The death of a human body can cause a greater level of ritual contamination than even the death of an animal, because the life of a human stands on such a high level. So then when it departs, the uncleanliness of the body, the ritual uncleanliness of the body is much deeper. Therefore, the cleansing process for the ritual cleansing of someone that became contaminated through a body is 7 days rather than 1 day, like if they became contaminated through an animal. And the 7 days is with the concoction of the red heifer. Now, people that are in a state of ritual uncleanliness are not permitted to enter into the temple, whether it was the Mishkan, which was the temple in the desert, or the Beit HaMikdash that was later built in the holy city of Jerusalem. They had to go through the 7-day process of self-cleansing and cleansing through the concoction of the red heifer that they should be able to go into the temple. So there were a group of people that were occupied in carrying the remains of Joseph from Egypt to Israel. And there were also a group of people that were carrying other remains that they were bringing to burial in the Holy Land of Israel. So they were in a state of ritual uncleanness. And they came to Moshe and they said to Moshe, why should we lose out? Why should we be deficient in this communal observance of the Pesach Seder, since we're not permitted to go to the temple and we cannot partake in the Korban Pesach, we will be left out. And Moshe said, let me turn to God, stand by while I get the response from God. And Moshe turned to God, and God said, yes, they are right. And I will command you now to introduce a new mitzvah, which is one of the 613 commandments. And that mitzvah is that every year when Pesach is observed, there will be a makeup day, which will be called the second Pesach, exactly 1 month after the eve of the first Pesach. So the offering on the first Pesach is brought on the 14th day of Nisan. So on the 14th day of Iyar, those people that were either ritually unclean or people that were at a distant journey and they couldn't make it to the temple on time to bring the offering, they will be given a second chance. And that is the origin of this holiday. Practically speaking, we celebrate the holiday by omitting the tachnun and also eating some matzah during the afternoon or the evening after Pesach Sheni. But there is a profound lesson here when we examine the meaning of the second Pesach. Number one is that sometimes you need to call out from the depth of your heart, why are we deficient? Why are we not part of the rest of the community? because a lot of us settle into a level of complacency when it comes to our Jewish observance, and if the opportunity is denied from us, we are satisfied with that. So comes along the Torah and says, no, that the Jew has an inner cry and comes to God and says, why don't I have the opportunity and the privilege to do so? And when you cry out to God, you never know what the response will be. And in this case, it was a new mitzvah, which was one of the 613 commandments that was given to the Jewish people. The second lesson, which is equally profound, is the fact that even if someone has sunk to the lowest level that they've become ritually unclean, figuratively speaking, not by touching a dead body, but spiritually, that they have been involved in things that are unclean, things that are not within the Spirit of God, but on the contrary, they still have an opportunity to turn around. They're given a second chance to reconnect. Similarly, if someone is at a distant journey, in other words, they may have not become unclean, they haven't gone into areas that one is not supposed to go into. In other words, they haven't immersed themselves in unholy thoughts, but they have gone off the way. They have not been involved in the community. They have not been involved in their Judaism. They've gone on a secular path, just a regular path, a neutral path. They too have the opportunity to turn around and to come back to Jerusalem, so to speak, to come back to the holiness. That's what Pesach Sheni says. The second Pesach says that it's never lost. There's a Yiddish expression that the previous Rebbe introduced, and the Rebbe would mention it many times, and that is "Senishtokin Frafal." It's not lost. It's never lost. As long as you're alive, and as long as your soul is within you, and you have breath within you, and you have the ability to do, you can return. You can make changes in your life, and you can come back to Hashem. That is the beauty of Judaism, that the Torah gives us the instrument and the recipe and the formula through which we could always turn to Hashem and cleanse ourselves. So Pesach Sheni, even though it's not that well known, and most people, because they have probably been exhausted from the first Pesach, don't even want to deal with the second Pesach, but the spiritual lesson is definitely one that has major implications in our Jewish life. Again, the rituals that we do is that we eat matzah. There are various opinions whether to eat matzah in the afternoon or in the evening, since the Paschal lamb was brought in the afternoon, but it was eaten in the evening. So it's suggested, if you can, to have matzah at both occasions, for the late lunch, and also, which is after 1:30 p.m., and also in the evening when you have your Friday night meal. We also don't recite Tachnun, and we rejoice in this holiday. And may Hashem hear our cry and say to us, I have heard what you are saying. Why are we deficient? Why don't we have the opportunity now to daven with a minyan, to pray with the congregation, and to be in the synagogue, and to be able to congregate together, that God should help us, that the pandemic should disappear and vanish completely. All the restrictions will be gone. We'll be able to regroup with Hashem's help, and most of all, to be able to march together with our righteous Mashiach to the holy city of Jerusalem and to see the temple rebuilt. Thank you very much. I also want to take this opportunity to inform you that today at 3 o'clock, we will be having a special Shloshim Farbrengen in honor of my father. My father did not want to have speeches. He wanted to have a Farbrengen. It will be broadcast live throughout the world on many websites. The origin of this website is going to be at Chabad.org. You can click on chabadnc.org/Rabbi Groner at 3 o'clock and watch the Shloshim Farbrengen. If you're tuning in to this Facebook Live later in the day and you've missed it, you can still go on that site, as they will have a recording of that event on their website. And let's hope that we have good news. And again, we await the coming of our righteous Mashiach. Thank you.